The college football transfer portal doesn't even open until January 2nd. And yet, the Miami Hurricanes are already getting linked to one of the biggest possible names at quarterback.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We made it. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this loaded episode, we'll talk some Miami hoops because they look downright dominant last night on the hardwood, Jay Lucas's team, in beating Bethune-Cookman. Now, Bethune-Cookman basketball is not the same as Bethune-Cookman football. That was a really good win and a blowout win, in fact, for the Canes. Going back to football, though, is we all hope we have a better weekend this week than we had last week, right? Miami taking on a struggling Syracuse team, but there are some really important notes on Miami's personnel based on the injury report and Syracuse's personnel, because Fran Brown, he revealed who the starting quarterback is going to be on Saturday. We'll have that for you. But now, transfer portal talk in November. Don't blame me for this one. I guess you can blame TODD MCSHAY for this one going out there. So TODD MCSHAY is already linking the Miami Hurricanes to a possible transfer of South Carolina quarterback, who, by the way, I'm a fan. LaNorris, super talented. He's built like a Sherman tank, 6'3", 240 pounds, and he is a legit dual threat. Like, I am a fan of the talent of LaNorris, who's currently with the South Carolina Gamecocks. And TODD MCSHAY on his show yesterday said, hey, there's a strong opinion in NFL scouting circles, because that's his angle, of course, that LaNorris will be back in school next year. Yeah, we're expecting the same thing. LaNorris is a third-year sophomore, so he's technically got 2 years of college eligibility left. Had he had a really great 2025, could have even left now. He's probably looking to leave after next season and forego the senior year. But MCSHAY says he will be back in school next year, that he absolutely needs to for his development to be ready when called upon as a first-round draft pick. Future first-round pick, they think. Everyone is supporting the concept of he needs another year in college. There are people in his camp that are in agreement from what I'm told. And then MCSHAY continues. He says, I'm not here to say that there's collusion. I promise you, no one said a word. But one person started putting the dots together. There's a place in South Florida where they've done a really nice job of handpicking quarterbacks the last 2 years, and they've seen ascensions in their game. Miami, so there he said it, Miami, MCSHAY said, is a program I would be very cautious of if I'm Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks program of trying to come in with an offer that's very difficult to refuse. All right, so here's what's going on here, and the name LaNorris has been brought up on this show before. I recall a conversation that we had with the recruiting overlord and the host of the Portal Pod, Brian Smith, who said to us back in September, talking 2 months ago here on Locked On Canes, that watch out for Miami maybe making a move for LaNorris next year as a possible transfer quarterback after, the one-and-done year of Carson Beck is over. And I'm sure others have said it, and others, of course, have linked Miami to C.J. Bailey, who's quarterback of NC State, who's having a really good year. We're going to see him down here in a little over a week, by the way, former Chaminade Madonna standout. So, yeah, you're going to have names, and a lot of the same names from LaNorris, C.J. Bailey getting thrown out there. At this point, all it is what I refer to as easy speculation, right? Miami has shown the pattern the past 2 seasons of going out and grabbing a transfer portal quarterback that they think can raise their floor and their ceiling. Cam Ward 2 years ago did both of those things. He raised Miami's floor and he raised Miami's ceiling. Carson Beck this year, there have been ups and downs, obviously. I think he's raised Miami's floor. The jury is still out on the ceiling with 4 games left to play. So Miami's had the pattern of going after transfer quarterbacks to become immediate starters. And then, of course, Miami, as everyone knows, is very competitive in the NIL landscape. They're willing to pay what it takes to bring a starting caliber quarterback to Coral Gables, right? It's, I'm sure they can be outbid, but, Miami has the reputation of having a very formidable NIL consideration. So if you put those factors together, it's really easy to speculate that LaNorris Sellers could end up at Miami. Here is something worth bringing up, though. Before we get into LaNorris Sellers, who, again, I think is an awesome player, I'm really skeptical if this would happen. And then there's also reasons to be skeptical as to whether it should happen. Let's talk about why it may not be possible to happen. I don't know if the Sellers camp and family have changed their tune on something that they were talking about during the offseason. Perhaps TODD MCSHAY was not aware of these comments because the father of LaNorris Sellers was interviewed by Clutch Points during the offseason before the season started in South Carolina. Now, perhaps with South Carolina just not having a good team this year, maybe their minds have been changed on this because the outlook is always rosy during the offseason. But this is what LaNorris Sellers' father said about NIL offers coming from other programs and other teams trying to get his son to transfer away from South Carolina. He said, quote, "We didn't come here to make money. We came here to get our education, play ball, and with schools calling, we're not going to jump ship because they're offering more than what we're getting. If it ain't broke, don't fix it," he said. He continued, "You don't need $8 million. I guess that's the speculation that Sellers might have been receiving $8 million portal offers last year. He says, "You don't need $8 million. You're at a great spot." There were several talks, but it never really crossed his mind to leave. It's a challenge with colleges offering younger guys that kind of money. Who's going to say to no to $8 million for 2 years? They're going to be swayed if you don't have the right people in your corner. But, I mean, didn't those comments make it pretty clear? This was in July that LaNorris Sellers' father basically said it. And they're from South Carolina, by the way. He's playing for the hometown team there with the Gamecocks. That they made it very clear they're not, interested in entertaining offers. So again, it's easy speculation here on Sellers. Now, if you're able to get LaNorris Sellers into your quarterback room, I'm not saying I would complain about it. I mean, I know that he and the Gamecocks are having a down year this year. He's got 1,500 passing yards and 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. There have been some ball security questions with Sellers. He's only run the ball for 158 yards so far this year, does have 3 rushing touchdowns. But 2024, though, is the year. And if he can get back to this, why LaNorris Sellers is going to be a guy. He's going to be taking a lot of phone calls this offseason. Whether Dad answers those or not, we'll find out. But in 2024, LaNorris Sellers' stock was going through the roof. 65.6% completions as a passer. 2,554 passing yards, 18 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, along with 7 rushing touchdowns, and he rushed for 674 yards last year. So you're talking 25 total touchdowns to 7 interceptions, the dual threat, running threat, which, listen, no matter who your offensive coordinator is, whether it's, Shannon Dawson or whoever, having a dual threat, running quarterback is obviously a luxury, and it's something that does happen to fit well with the offense that Miami currently runs. So talent-wise, if you had the opportunity to get a LaNorris Sellers, just strictly based on the talent and strictly based on how he can raise the floor, you wouldn't say no. But is another transfer portal quarterback, after Miami's done this 2 years in a row, would that be the best option for 2026 and the way that 2026 domino would affect 2027 and beyond? I believe Miami Hurricanes coaches need to ask themselves 2 questions before they make this decision. We'll tell you what those 2 questions are when we come back. We're only getting started. We got Syracuse on the clock, by the way. We'll talk more about that game, 3:30 p.m. on Saturday. But we'll talk more about this quarterback situation right here on this brand new episode of Locked on Canes. You want to keep it locked. Folks, the weekend is finally here, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For your Miami Hurricanes, you want to talk about who's been consistent all season long, who's been on a streak. Malachi Toney has delivered in a big way. Win or lose, Malachi has always been making plays. When the pressure is on, true freshman receiver, Malachi Toney comes through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, his performances lately are not a fluke. Toney is on a hot streak. And just like Malachi Toney delivers for the Canes, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday and keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period runs through November 18th. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. All right, so folks, I already can imagine what our comments look like here on our YouTube page and what our comments look like if you want to get at me on X at Alex Donno. I know a lot of you are not fans of the idea of going the transfer portal route again for the third straight year for a starting quarterback. So Miami Hurricanes coaches, before you go this route, I believe they need to ask themselves two very important questions. The first question, I don't know the answer to, and I don't think any of us do. We're not at practices day in and day out, right? We're not in the meeting rooms. We're not evaluating every snap these guys take in the IPF and in Greentree. Only the coaches can answer this first question. But the first question is, do we feel that any of our current depth in the quarterback room behind Carson Beck are good enough to be the starting quarterback at the University of Miami next season? If the answer is no, then obviously you consider going the portal route again. But if that answer is no, if they don't feel that any of their current depth is Miami caliber for next year, then that's either because maybe the timing is wrong. That's one possibility. Like Luke Nickel, who is a really bright, young, talented, currently true freshman quarterback. Maybe they feel he is going to be good enough, but maybe just not yet because he's so young. Same thing with DEREON Coleman. DEREON Coleman's going to be coming in as a true freshman. Maybe they feel that these guys, one or both of these guys, could be the future, but the timing is wrong. That's one possibility. Or is it because the development in your quarterback room hasn't been good enough? When you have EMORY WILLIAMS heading into his fourth season, JUDD ANDERSON heading into his third, have you just not done a good enough job developing them? And maybe that could fall on the players as well. I'm not saying it's all on coaching. Or is your recruiting at that position, has that not been good enough, right? All right, so here's the second question that Miami coaches have to ask themselves. And you know what? The fans need to ask themselves the same question when it comes to the expectations and the outlook. Are we willing to accept the growing pains and the possibility of extra losses next year in the name of starting a young quarterback in hopes that that quarterback develops, right? Because when you bring in a high caliber experience transfer, you're raising the floor, right? I mean, Cam Ward raised the floor and the ceiling. Carson Beck raised the floor. We're not sure yet about the ceiling. LaNorris Sellers might very well raise both. CJ Bailey, if you can get him, might very well raise both of those things. But if you decide to go the internal route and give it over to someone who's not experienced and younger, are you willing to potentially sacrifice a win or two and go through some growing pains if it means making the better decision beyond 2026? Because, yeah, if you bring in a transfer, you're making that decision for 2026 only. If you go with the young starter, you're making that decision for multiple years down the road. Getting another portal starter, again, if you get LaNorris Sellers here to play behind a better offensive line than he's ever had and a much easier schedule in the ACC versus what he plays at South Carolina, yeah, you're more likely to be a playoff contender than if you go with one of your younger guys. But then does that make it impossible to recruit blue chip quarterbacks out of high school moving forward if you go into the portal every single year? I would like to hear from you guys down below. And I know that the camps are very split on this. I like to have strong opinions when I can, but I'm on the fence with this one because I see the pros and cons to either side of it. And I know my guy D Money from CanesInsight.com is very much in the camp of you go the portal route because most of the majority of the really great Power 4 quarterbacks are guys that didn't start at the same school that they're currently playing. The transfer portal is there for you to upgrade, right? But I love recruiting, and I love the idea of developing and trying to develop players from within. So you let me know in the comments below where you stand on this. But again, don't automatically think LaNorris Sellers is coming here, because if you heard those comments that his father made, it sounds to me like they're very happy in South Carolina, unless that's changed in the past several months since he made those comments back in the summer, all right? Okay, important update on Miami's injury report heading into the Syracuse game, 3:30 p.m. on Saturday, tomorrow. And I hope to see you guys at the Rock. I hope we could still pack that building, make some noise. I'm going to be there. If you see me outside the stadium before the game, please say hello. Do not be shy. The Thursday night injury report, I was shocked by a couple of these, okay? Mark Fletcher, Tony Johnson, and O.J. Frederick are all listed out. All right, kind of the vibe early in the week was Fletcher would probably be questionable. Like maybe it'd be a 50-50 type of call, but no, Mark Fletcher apparently is not going to play this week. He's your top running back. He's been your most productive running back this year. Now, again, given how poor Syracuse's defense has been all season long, you shouldn't need Mark Fletcher to win this game. You shouldn't need O.J. Frederick to win this game. I like the way Tony Johnson has been playing lately, especially in the Stanford game. You shouldn't need him to win this game, but this is notable because Tony Johnson, I didn't even know there was an issue there. Like I didn't. Maybe I wasn't paying enough attention in the SMU game. If he might have caught a little bit of an injury there, I didn't expect him to see. I didn't expect to see him on the injury report in any way, shape, or form. With Fletcher, we thought questionable. He's out. O.J. Frederick is not a surprise. We knew that was going to be a multiple week thing for him. And the questionables are a little surprising because C.J. Daniels, starting wide receiver who missed the SMU game, Mario Cristobal had kind of described his injury as like a multi-week thing that we're not going to see him, yet he's listed as questionable. So I don't know if he's made some improvements during the week according to his status, but I certainly was not expecting C.J. Daniels to play. So he's listed questionable. I'm going to kind of err on the side of doubtful for him. Wesley Basaint is questionable. You'd like to have him in your linebacker core. And Ahmad Moten Sr. is questionable, your defensive tackle. Cristobal had described that situation as a 50-50 type earlier this week. So, yeah, if Ahmad cannot go, you're going to see a much heavier workload for Justin Scott, who's been playing well. Scott made some important plays. I know Miami lost last week, but Justin Scott has been trending well. The young defensive tackle, second-year former five-star recruit. He and David Blay are going to be the anchors of that interior defensive line if Ahmad Moten cannot play. In the case of C.J. Daniels and Tony Johnson, if they're both out, the formula is very simple. Malachi Toney is healthy. You know he's going to be featured. He's going to get a lot of looks. Some things never change. Malachi Toney's always going to be your number one weapon these days. JoJo Trader, this is another massive opportunity. JoJo, I would expect, is going to start again this week. Let's build on what happened last week because JoJo made an incredible play, great play on his touchdown reception. Should have been open in the end zone had he not been tackled on that overtime play with no flag thrown. Had, of course, the mistake with the dropped pass, the bobble. Miami actually had 5 drops last week. They weren't, I think Trader just had one of those. But as a team, Miami had 5 drops, which is uncharacteristic. That was not a good overall showing from the receiver room. But JoJo Trader, we know he's capable, right? He's going to have to step up and play a big-time role this week. And, Keelan Marion, of course. Josh Moore, though. Joshua Moore is someone I'm going to look at who has an opportunity to really step up and play a big game. The very large, true freshman receiver who's had some good moments in the Stanford game, and he took over the USF game. Like, he was incredible in that USF game. Just hasn't, played consistently since, but I think he's going to get a lot of playing time this weekend. So that is the major outlook. And then, of course, with Mark Fletcher out, Simple formula there. You know, Marty Brown is going to play a lot, probably going to start at running back. Jordan Lyle is going to have an increased workload as the number 2, maybe 1A, 1B dynamic there. And with Lyle, you know, he's obviously, his health has been trending up. His rhythm has been trending up. This can be a big game for him against the 123rd ranked rushing defense in the country. So let's hope for a big game from Jordan Lyle. And, you know, if we get a little bit of Chris Wheatley-Humphrey and maybe a little bit of Gerard Pringle as well, I'm very bullish on both of those guys. Wheatley-Humphrey has added a lot of meat to his frame. He's gotten stronger. He had a big stiff arm in that Stanford game when he played in the fourth quarter, and he's explosive. He's got track speed, and Gerard Pringle is just a dude. Like, he's very young. He's a true freshman. He scored a couple of touchdowns this year. He's had good moments every time he's touched the football. So I'll be curious to see, is Miami going to kind of lean on a 2-man running back rotation? If we do have the luxury of blowing out a bad Syracuse team, remember, Miami's favored by 28.5 points in this game. If we do have the luxury of, you know, kind of a Stanford-like situation in the fourth quarter and we can get Wheatley-Humphrey and Pringle into the game, that would be nice to get these guys some experience for the future. You know, people are like, Miami fans, you know, I know we're so down after SMU and everything, but people keep telling me, what business does this team have being favored 28 points? We're not going to score 28 points. We're terrible. We're going to lose this game outright. I see a lot of that. It's like, believe me, I understand the vibes coming off of SMU and coming off of this team committing the same self-inflicted wounds week after week after week. But have you watched Syracuse is my counter question, because they, since the Steve Angeli injury back in September 20th, they've been a completely different football team. Their offense only put up 3 points against Duke in a blowout loss. They did put up 18 points against SMU, 13 points in a loss to Pitt, 16 points in a loss to Georgia Tech, and their offense only scored 3 points in a loss to North Carolina, because 7 of those points were on a defensive score. But here's the thing. Now, Syracuse, I'll explain why they're going to be in a better position this week than they were against North Carolina. I still think Miami should win this game easily, but we're not going to have the same free space that Bill Belichick had last week. We'll explain when we come back. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new Locked On Canes. Guys, when the opening whistle blows on a new repair, your crew can get moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Do you need parts for a project? SupplyHouse has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters, and their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join their free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and dedicated support lines. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use our promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen. All right, so for those who watched, and I don't mind if you didn't, because it was a pretty awful football game. For those of you who did watch last Halloween night, Syracuse losing 27-10 at home to Bill Belichick's North Carolina, you noticed really one of the most inexcusable quarterback situations in the country. I mean, when you're a Power 4 football team and you decide to start at QB someone who is a walk-on freshman in your football program playing the most important position in the football field, a walk-on freshman who happens to be on a lacrosse scholarship because he's a 4-star lacrosse player, and that's the guy you trot out as your starting quarterback, Joe Filardi. My colleague Jackson Holzer from Locked On Syracuse, he referred to it as coaching malpractice by Fran Brown. I think Fran, coach of Syracuse, like, he wanted to send a message because, their original starting quarterback, Steve Angeli, was playing great. suffered a season-ending injury in late September. So they had been rolling with LSU transfer Ricky Collins, who has been dreadful to the point where Fran Brown decided, even though I know I have nothing better than Ricky Collins on my bench, I need to send a message that everyone's job is up for grabs. So he decided to bench his quarterback, but by benching his quarterback, his best option was apparently a walk-on player who doesn't even go to the school to play the sport that you're currently on the field to play. And it was, as you would imagine, a train wreck. Filardi completed 4 passes for 39 yards, and it was a guy who had no business playing quarterback. So, the good news for Syracuse is, this is not great news, but it's good news. Fran Brown announced on his weekly radio show on Thursday that he is going back to Ricky Collins, right? Ricky took his medicine. We benched the guy for a week. With Miami's luck, benching Collins for a week will light a fire, and he's going to look like prime Donovan McNabb out there on Saturday. But Ricky Collins has been terrible, just so you know. There's a reason why he got benched for a freshman lacrosse player. But the lacrosse player was so bad, they're going back to Ricky Collins. So I just wanted to offer the update on that because I know we've been saying throughout the week we didn't know who was going to start at quarterback, but Brown is going back to LSU transfer Ricky Collins, so they're at least going to have a quarterback who plays quarterback, but again, not well. Miami has no excuses not to win this game. So I know Miami has some key injuries. Syracuse is going back to Collins at QB. With that 28.5-point spread, I've seen some Miami fans say, hey, they're only doing this because the College Football Playoff Committee wants to set Miami up to where if you don't cover the 4-touchdown spread, we're going to rip you and we're going to drop you another spot. And if you do cover the spread, well, Syracuse is terrible, so who cares? Yeah, I don't know if there's any manipulation happening there. This is the way that I look at it, all right? And again, our Canes have our own issues. We did a whole episode about it yesterday. The turnovers, the failed execution on offense, the lack of innovation in the play calling, the lack of rhythm in the play calling, the freaking penalties. Miami has plenty of their own problems. But I think the reason why Miami's favored by 4 touchdowns is simply because on paper, the Syracuse team, on paper, again, the game's played on grass, not on paper, but the Syracuse team coming in on Saturday looks worse than the Stanford team that Miami beat by 35 points at home a couple of weeks ago. So I think for that reason is why the spread is where it is, where Miami is favored by 4 touchdowns, even though, again, Miami fans are like, we're not even going to score 28 points. How do we win by 28 points? I mean, we might, and I don't know if Syracuse is going to score, period, if we're being honest. But again, Ricky Collins may look like, the second coming of a young Peyton Manning out there. Not Arch, Peyton. We'll see what happens. But, man, I'm excited all season long to be covering Miami Hurricanes basketball. Jay Lucas is lighting a fire on this fan base. He certainly got my attention. So, and again, I know there are more difficult games coming. You got a full conference schedule. Miami, I think, was picked to finish 8th in the ACC out of 18 teams, so just a little bit above average. I think Miami can overperform that, by the way. I think Miami could maybe be a threat to finish like top 6, top 5 in the ACC this year because there's a lot of talent on this roster. So Miami goes into the Watsco Center last night against and we're not talking football, we're talking Bethune-Cookman basketball. Their team has some good talent. Bethune-Cookman, in their previous game, took 20th ranked Auburn into overtime and scored a lot of points in doing that. Miami beats them by 40 last night. Tremendous offensive performance. I had to miss a lot of the second half because I was working the Florida Panthers hockey broadcast late night last night. Watched the entire first half, watched some highlights of the second half. Man, I loved the way Miami guard Trey Donaldson was just carving up that defense, the way he attacks the rim, gets to the free throw line. MALIK RENEAU is a certified stud. Dante Allen, Shelton Henderson, like the young talent, the freshman talent on this team. Again, like I'm not going to start planning my parade route to get back to the Final Four or anything like that, but Jay Lucas is on to something there, and that was an awesome performance, and Miami absolutely dominated in the paint. against Bethune-Cookman last night. So a very, very nice win for your Miami Hurricanes, who broke the 100 mark yesterday. They broke the century mark in a 101-61 win against Bethune-Cookman. So this is a great start. They led 50-31 at halftime, and they never looked back. So be paying attention to Canes basketball and get out there to these games. I got to get out there again soon so I can I can meet up with the Metro Rail boys outside before these games. So hopefully Miami can keep it rolling in basketball, because I love what Jay Lucas is doing down there. Folks, I appreciate everyone for making Locked On Canes your first listen on this Friday. Make sure to smash the like button and subscribe. Make sure to let us know, do you think the Hurricanes are going to have a bounce-back, convincing performance against Syracuse, or do you think they're going to struggle? Do you think Miami can make a run during these final 4 games? And if you could look ahead to next year, would you rather go the transfer portal route for another quarterback, or would you rather try to hand the keys to someone who's already in the program? Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.